The smoke rose from the burning fields of Nexera Prime like ancient funeral pyres. Commander Marcus Aurelius Varro stood on the ridge overlooking the valley where 10,000 rebel soldiers had gathered. His powered armor hummed quietly, displaying tactical data across his visor. Behind him, arranged in perfect formation, stood the 12th Legion of Earth's interstellar dominion. 40,000 soldiers, each one trained from childhood in the ancient ways of Rome, combined with technology that their ancestors could never have imagined. The rebellion had started 3 years ago on the outer colonies. They called themselves the Free Stars Alliance. They wanted independence from Earth. They wanted to govern themselves without the iron hand of the Dominion controlling every aspect of their lives. Marcus understood their desire. He had been born on Mars himself, far from the green hills of old Earth. But understanding did not mean acceptance. His orders were clear. Crush the rebellion. Restore order. Show no mercy to those who refuse to surrender. The rebel commander was a woman named Elena Vasquez. She had once been a captain in the Dominion fleet before she turned traitor. Marcus had studied her tactics carefully. She was brilliant and unpredictable. Her forces had won 7 major engagements against Dominion troops. She had become a symbol of hope for millions of colonists who dreamed of freedom. Today, Marcus intended to destroy that symbol permanently. The morning sun of Nexera Prime cast long shadows across the battlefield. The rebels had chosen this valley carefully. Mountains protected their flanks. A river blocked any approach from the rear. They had dug trenches and built fortifications. They had energy shields and heavy weapons. Elena believed the terrain would neutralize the Dominion's numerical advantage. She was wrong. Marcus raised his hand. A centurion beside him activated the communication array. His voice would reach every soldier in the Legion simultaneously. He spoke calmly, almost gently. He reminded them of their duty. He reminded them of the glory of Rome that had been reborn among the stars. He told them that today they would write their names in history. Then he gave the order to advance. The first wave consisted of drone swarms. Millions of small machines darkened the sky like locusts. They carried no weapons. Their only purpose was to absorb enemy fire and overwhelm the rebel sensors. The rebels shot them down by the thousands, but for every drone destroyed, 10 more took its place. The sky itself seemed to fall upon the valley. Under the cover of this mechanical storm, the heavy infantry moved forward. They marched in the ancient testudo formation, shields locked together above and around them. But these were not wooden shields covered in leather. These were energy barriers projected from forearm generators. Plasma fire from the rebel positions splashed harmlessly against the glowing walls of light. The infantry advanced steadily, step by step, exactly as Roman soldiers had done 2,000 years ago on the fields of Gaul and Germania. Elena watched the advance with growing concern. Her intelligence had told her that the Dominion forces relied too heavily on technology. She had expected chaos and confusion when her electronic warfare systems disrupted their communications. But the Dominion troops moved as one organism even with their networks jammed. They did not need constant orders from their commanders. Each soldier knew their role. Each unit understood the overall strategy. This was the true strength of the Legion system. Individual initiative within collective discipline. She ordered a counterattack. Her best troops, veterans who had fought in a dozen battles, charged from the trenches to meet the Dominion infantry. They expected hand-to-hand combat where their experience would give them advantage. Instead, the Dominion formation simply opened. Gaps appeared in the shield wall. From those gaps emerged soldiers carrying weapons that looked like ancient Roman javelins, but were actually molecular disruption lances. They threw these weapons with devastating accuracy. Each lance punched through body armor like paper. Hundreds of rebels fell in the first volley alone. The rebel charge faltered. Elena screamed orders over the communication channels. She demanded that her troops hold the line, but fear had taken hold. These were farmers and miners and factory workers who had picked up weapons to fight for their freedom. They were brave, but they were not soldiers. They had never faced the cold efficiency of a true legion in battle. Marcus observed the chaos spreading through the rebel ranks. He felt no joy at the sight. He remembered the words of his instructor at the academy on Muna. Victory without honor is just organized murder. But honor was a luxury the commanders could not afford. His duty was to end this rebellion as quickly as possible. Every day the war continued. More people died on both sides. A swift and total victory would save more lives in the long term. This was what he told himself. This was what allowed him to sleep at night. The Legion pressed forward. The testudo formations broke apart as they reached the rebel trenches. Now the fighting became personal. Soldiers faced each other with plasma blades and kinetic weapons. The air filled with screams and the smell of burning flesh. Marcus watched young men and women die by the hundreds. Some wore the uniform of the Dominion. Most wore the mismatched armor of the rebels. In death, they looked the same. Just bodies lying in the mud. Elena knew the battle was lost. She had known it within the first hour, but she had refused to accept it. Now, watching her army crumble, she finally understood the truth. The Dominion had not won because of superior numbers or better technology. They had won because they had something her forces lacked. They had 2,000 years of military tradition burned into their very souls. They had the weight of history behind every decision, every tactic, every formation. A rebellion had been doomed from the start. She could surrender. Marcus had offered terms before the battle. Lay down your weapons, and you will be treated fairly. But Elena knew what fairly meant in the Dominion's vocabulary. Public trial, public execution. Her body displayed as a warning to anyone else who dreamed of freedom. She would rather die fighting than give them that satisfaction. She gathered her personal guard, 50 men and women who had followed her since the beginning. They mounted a desperate charge toward the Dominion command position. If they could kill Marcus, perhaps the shock would give her surviving troops time to escape. It was a foolish hope, but it was the only hope she had left. Marcus saw them coming. He admired their courage even as he gave orders to intercept them. His Praetorian Guard moved to block the charge. These were the elite soldiers of the Legion. Each one had proven themselves in dozens of campaigns. They formed a wall of steel and light that no rebel charge could penetrate. Elena reached the wall. Her plasma blade carved through 2 Praetorians before they could react. She was fast and skilled and absolutely determined. For a moment, Marcus thought she might actually reach him. Then a molecular lance took her through the chest. She fell to her knees, her weapon dropping from nerveless fingers. Her eyes found Marcus across the battlefield. There was no hatred in them, only sadness and something that might have been understanding. She died without speaking another word. Her body collapsed into the mud alongside thousands of others. The rebellion died with her. Without their symbol, the remaining rebel soldiers lost all will to fight. Some tried to flee. Most simply dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The battle was over. Marcus walked across the battlefield as the sun began to set. The wounded cried out for help. Medical teams from both sides worked together to save whoever they could. War had ended. Now came the harder task of peace. He stopped beside Elena's body. Someone had closed her eyes. In death, she looked younger than her 35 years. He ordered his soldiers to treat her remains with respect. She had been an enemy, but she had fought with honor. The victory celebrations that night felt hollow. Soldiers drank and sang songs of glory, but their eyes told a different story. They had killed fellow humans today, not aliens, not machines. People who spoke the same language and dreamed the same dreams. The Dominion would call this a great victory. History books would praise Commander Marcus Varro as a hero who saved the Empire from destruction. But Marcus knew the truth. There were no heroes on that battlefield, only survivors. The news of the rebel defeat spread across the colonies within hours. On 100 worlds, people who had hoped for freedom felt that hope die. The Dominion was too strong. The Legion was unbeatable. Better to accept their rule than to die in futile resistance. This was exactly what the Dominion wanted. Fear was a more effective weapon than any plasma rifle. Marcus returned to Earth 3 months later. The Senate awarded him the Corona Civica, the highest military honor. He stood before cheering crowds and accepted their praise with a face carved from stone. That night, alone in his quarters, he drank until he could no longer see Elena's face in his mind. It did not work. He knew it would never work. The rebellion was crushed. Order was restored. The Dominion would endure for another 1,000 years, its grip on humanity tighter than ever. This was the price of peace. This was the cost of unity. Freedom had died on the bloody battlefield of Nexera Prime, and the Roman legions had been its executioner. Somewhere in the outer reaches of the galaxy, on a small moon that had no name, a young girl listened to the stories of Elena Vasquez. She learned about a brave woman who had dared to challenge the might of Earth's dominion. She heard about the last stand in the valley, where 10,000 rebels had died rather than surrender. The girl did not cry. She simply made a promise to herself. One day, she would finish what Elena had started. The fire of rebellion had been dampened, but it had not been extinguished. As long as people dreamed of freedom, that fire would continue to burn. Marcus knew this too. He understood that military victory was never permanent. Today's defeated rebels would become tomorrow's martyrs. Their children would grow up with stories of resistance and sacrifice. The cycle would repeat itself endlessly until something fundamental changed. But changing fundamental things was above his pay grade. He was just a soldier. His job was to follow orders and win battles. Questions of justice and freedom were for philosophers and politicians. The sun set over the scarred landscape of Nexera Prime. Recovery teams continued their grim work of collecting bodies. The planet would bear the marks of this battle for generations. Perhaps one day, someone would build a memorial here. Perhaps they would honor both the fallen legionaries and the rebels who had died fighting for their dreams. Or perhaps the valley would simply be forgotten, just another battlefield in humanity's endless war against itself. Either way, the dead would remain silent. They had no more stories to tell. Their chapter was finished. But the book of human conflict remained open, waiting for the next bloody page to be written.